What you're watching is a silent archival film preserved in the National Archives and Records Administration. And what it captured is pure Disneyland history. The dedication of the Submarine Voyage, one of the most ambitious attractions Walt Disney had ever built. The first faces we see are some of the most powerful in America. That's Vice President Richard Nixon, arriving at Disneyland with his family to headline what was then the park's largest expansion. On June 14, 1959, Disneyland unveiled a new Tomorrowland, featuring the Matterhorn, the monorail, and the submarine voyage. As the Nixons take their seats, the camera lingers on key naval figures, including Admiral Charles C. Kirkpatrick, then Chief of Information for the U.S. Navy, and Admiral Charles Hartman, Commandant of the 11th Naval District. Their presence underscores the moment. The submarine voyage was directly tied to the Navy and to the Cold War triumph of the USS Nautilus, the first submarine to travel beneath the North Pole, transforming a real-world achievement into a Disneyland experience. Then the parade begins. Main Street, USA is packed shoulder to shoulder as marching units, color guards, and themed floats roll forward. Walt Disney himself rides in one of the antique cars, smiling as the procession moves toward the viewing stand. The parade isn't just a warm-up, it is an announcement. Disneyland wants its guests to understand that this new attraction belongs to the same world as real submarines, real exploration, and real national pride. Walt Disney's connection to the military ran deep, long before 1959. During World War I, Walt famously falsified his age to join the American Red Cross Ambulance Corps, serving in France, while his brother Roy enlisted in the U.S. Navy. Those early experiences shaped Walt's lifelong respect for service and discipline. During World War II, the Disney studio became a critical partner in the war effort, producing training films, insignia, and propaganda for every branch of the armed forces. By the time of the submarine voyage, Disney's collaboration with the military wasn't new. It was a continuation of decades-long ties between storytelling, service, and national purpose. And then comes the visual centerpiece, a float for the submarine voyage, complete with King Neptune, ocean imagery, and a naval band playing Anchors Aweigh. It's classic Disneyland, part civic ceremony, part military spectacle, part fantasy pageant. To understand why this mattered, you have to remember the moment. In 1959, submarines were futuristic. Nuclear power was futuristic. Undersea exploration was futuristic. Just 1 year earlier, in 1958, the USS Nautilus completed Operation Sunshine, the first successful voyage beneath the North Pole, capturing global headlines and proving the strategic power of nuclear submarines in the Cold War. Walt Disney, always alert to the public imagination, channeled that excitement into Tomorrowland. What's really interesting here is that none of the expected dignitaries, not Vice President Nixon, not the assembled admirals, not even Walt Disney himself, christened the submarine. Instead, that honor went to Mrs. Mildred Nelson, reflecting a long-standing maritime tradition. Traditionally, a woman, often called a ship's godmother or sponsor, is chosen to christen a vessel, symbolizing protection, good fortune, and safe passage. Mildred Nelson was no symbolic choice. A former member of the Navy's Waves and the wife of USS Nautilus Chief Machinist Mate Stuart Nelson, she represented the real human connection to the submarine's legacy. In a powerful twist, the bottle she broke wasn't champagne, but one filled with water from the Arctic Ocean, directly linking the ceremony to the USS Nautilus's historic polar voyage. Now the ceremony turns formal. Walt Disney and Admiral Kirkpatrick addressed the crowd from a platform overlooking the lagoon. This was very much in keeping with Walt's style in 1959. He didn't unveil attractions quietly. He unveiled them as declarations. Tomorrowland wasn't supposed to feel like fantasy. It was supposed to feel plausible, credible, imminent. And by placing real naval officers, real submarine personnel, and the Vice President of the United States at the center of the event, Walt gave his undersea adventure an extraordinary sense of authenticity. The submarine voyage was one of the most complex attractions Walt Disney had ever attempted. Designed in just over 2 years for the 1959 expansion, it brought together some of Imagineering's greatest minds, including Bob Gurr, vehicle design, Roger Broggie, engineering, Claude Coates, show design, and Ub Iwerks, special effects. The submarines themselves were fully engineered vessels, guided by an underwater track and powered by diesel-electric systems. Built at Todd shipyards and installed in a carefully controlled lagoon, the attraction blended real naval engineering with theatrical illusion, creating the convincing sensation of a deep-sea dive without ever truly submerging. And now, the moment everyone has been waiting for. VIPs step aboard, cameras roll, and Disneyland's Nautilus begins its inaugural circuit of the lagoon. What looks effortless from the shore was actually a carefully choreographed operation. Each vessel followed a concealed track at a precisely controlled speed, timed to narration and show scenes along the route. Inside, guests sat below the waterline, peering through angled portholes designed to enhance depth perception. The lagoon itself held roughly 11 million gallons of water, carefully filtered and tinted to maintain clarity, transforming it into a believable undersea world. Beneath the surface, sculpted seabeds, artificial coral formations, and carefully staged set pieces were arranged using forced perspective, allowing relatively shallow water, only about 14 feet deep, to feel vast, mysterious, and seemingly endless. As one submarine returns and another arrives, the Navy band keeps the ceremony moving. The camera alternates between brass instruments, VIP reactions, and the dockside choreography of boarding and disembarking. It all feels very official, almost like a naval commissioning folded into a Disneyland press event. And that tone was intentional. In 1959, the submarine voyage was sold as a Tomorrowland attraction, but it also reflected Cold War confidence, American engineering, American optimism, American reach. Soon, the focus shifts from dignitaries to guests. We see ordinary visitors beginning to board the submarines, exactly as Walt intended. The magic of Disneyland was never just about watching a ceremony. It was about crossing the threshold and becoming part of it yourself. Within minutes, what had been a VIP spectacle became an experience for the public. Guests lined up under the submarine voyage sign, stepped aboard vessels like the George Washington, Triton, and Skate, and set off on one of the park's earliest true e-ticket adventures. Once underway, riders peered through portholes into one of Disneyland's most elaborate environments. But this wasn't just a series of scenes. It was a carefully structured narrative journey. The voyage began in familiar coastal waters, gradually moving into deeper, more mysterious regions of the ocean. As the submarine descended, the environment shifted, from bright reefs teeming with life to darker, more ominous depths, filled with strange creatures and shipwreck remnants, suggesting the unknown dangers of the sea. From there, the story pushed into exploration and discovery. Guests encountered the frozen world of the polar ice cap, a direct nod to the real-world achievements of the USS Nautilus, before transitioning into pure fantasy with glowing bioluminescent life and the lost city of Atlantis, presented not as myth, but as something newly uncovered. The finale, with its playful sea serpent, brought the journey back toward imagination and wonder. It was a deliberate progression, from reality to mystery to discovery, and finally to fantasy, mirroring both the spirit of scientific exploration and Walt Disney's belief that the unknown should always feel just within reach. So what began as a Navy-connected ceremonial film, marked by the unexpected choice of Mildred Nelson, not a politician or even Walt himself, to christen the Nautilus, became something much more valuable. A surviving window into the day Walt Disney launched his little undersea fleet and invited the world aboard. Found today in the National Archives, this reel preserves not just a ride dedication, but a moment when Disneyland's future felt as bold and boundless as Tomorrowland itself. Thanks for watching, and remember, it all started with a mouse.